In this video, we're going to look at how to create a color mixing chart that we can then use as a guide for when we're ready to start painting our bird. Now I'm going to begin my chart by mixing black. And you may notice that I have a black paint palette here, but I want to start off by creating my own black. So I am going to create a sort of deep purple by mixing my blue and red together, and then add a little bit of yellow. So these are my primary colors. I can mix any colors with just these three colors, red, blue, and yellow. So I'm going to paint a square here with my black. I want my paint nice and opaque, which means I can't really see through it. And that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to label this with the colors that I used. So that's B plus R plus Y, so that I know I mixed blue, red, and yellow to create this black. Next up, I'm going to use that black paint palette and paint a square with just this black so I can see how it compares with the black that I created. So I'll paint a neat square and then label this one black. Now, when you are painting your bird, some of you might have birds that are mostly black. So I would encourage you to not just use the black paint palette, but to always try to mix in a different color. So you may notice that maybe some of the feathers on your bird are more of a bluish black or have a reddish black. So let's see how this looks. I'm going to mix in just a little bit of blue into my black. And here I'm creating a different shade of black, so a kind of bluish black. And then I'm going to label this one black plus B. So I know this is blue mixed in with black. And now I'm going to create one final square in this black section. I'm mixing a little bit of red into my black this time, and then I'm going to label this black plus R. And now I have 4 different shades of black. For the next section of my chart, I'm going to mix brown. And you'll notice that I'm only using my primary colors here. And I'm going to see if I can achieve 4 different browns just by adjusting the amount of each color that I'm using. So for this first square, it's quite an orangey brown, so I used mostly red and yellow and just a little bit of blue. For this next square, I am using more red and blue and just a little bit of yellow for this one, so it is a bit more of a purpley brown. And you'll notice that I've labeled this one in a different way. So I used just a little bit of yellow, so I have added the Y just at the end, so I know that is the color that I used the least amount of. And I'm going to continue until I have 4 different shades. So for this last one, maybe I'll start off with more of a green, so blue and yellow, and just a little bit of red for that one. So I'm going to label this one B plus Y plus R. And now I have 4 different shades of brown. Now I want to start mixing tints, and a tint is any shade of color that has white added to it. So I'm going to mix tints of the different browns that I created here. So I'm starting off with that first brown that I made. I'm going to recreate that. That was a bit of an orangey brown. So I'm mixing my red and yellow, and then I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. So it should be a lighter color there, and that is going to give me my tint. So I can label that again, just the R plus Y plus B plus W for white. Now that gives me one tint, but I want to see what that looks like with maybe just a bit more white added to it. So I'm just using the paint that is already mixed up on my paintbrush, and I'm going back to that white palette and picking up just a bit more white there. And since this is just a bit of extra white, I'm just going to put in parentheses plus W, so I know it's the same tint that I created, just a lighter version with more white. Now I'm going to repeat these steps for each of the browns that I created to see what different tints I can come up with. And I am going to use this chart as a guide for when I'm painting my bird. So as I'm going along and creating these different tints, I'm keeping an eye out for certain shades or certain colors or certain tints that I see in my bird that I want to use in my painting. And at this stage, you should start to see just how many different shades and tints you can create just by using your primary colors plus white. So here's my final mixing chart. You can see I've mixed black, 4 different shades of black, 4 different shades of brown. I've mixed tints. I came up with 8 tints of my brown. And I've also gone ahead and chosen 2 other colors that I could find in my bird, and I've mixed tints of those colors. So think about this chart as a guide for accurately matching the colors that you see in your bird. And remember to label your tints and shades, as this will make it easier to recreate those colors later on when you are painting your bird.